Hey guys, welcome back to the garden tractor garage, I guess. I came up with that idea for a username a couple weeks ago. I've been tossing it back and forth. I'm not really sure if I like it or not, but as some of you guys probably noticed, I changed my channel name. I'm giving that like a trial run, so if you guys think I ought to keep that channel name, drop a comment. I just figured it fit pretty well because most of my videos take place in the garage here, and I specialize in garden tractors, so yeah, let me know what you guys think. But anyway, summer's just about to set in, and as always, there's new machines here, and you know, lots of projects going on. So I figured I'd give you guys an update on some of the new equipment, some of the new toys I bought, and just to show you what I've been working on lately. So first off, why don't we start with the 210? I've been using this thing a lot this season, actually. This has probably been my most busy year for my lawn care business. I've been doing this going on 8 years now, and this has definitely been the busiest year. So believe it or not, the X570 is actually down. I've had it back at the John Deere dealer for warranty work a couple times. I'm finding a couple little issues with it here and there, but I'm actually kind of hoping some of the Deere engineers will see the problems I'm having and might, you know, find a way to correct them. But a lot of stuff on it's getting fixed under warranty, so it's a good, reliable machine, though. I mean, it's great for what I need to do. But while that's been down, I've actually been doing a lot of mowing with the 210. You know, the 210's 30, you know, going on 36 years old. It's not the best machine for the job, but it's reliable. It always starts right up. It's always ready to go to work, and it's ready for just about any task I throw at it. As you can see, I've been mowing some big properties with it, like the last video I uploaded. And it makes a good rough cut mower and a good lawn mower, too. It actually has a really nice cut quality for a 46-inch deck, so I'm kind of surprised. But it's been a good, reliable machine. It's just slow, and it has a wide turning radius, and you have to shift gears all the time, so it's not the most practical for doing commercial mowing. But like I said, as a backup mower, it does everything I need. As you know, I've been running the engine without the flywheel screen, which is not a good thing, especially with all the mowing I do, because all it does is it lets grass get sucked up into the intake, and then it causes the engine to run hot, and you know, that just puts excessive wear and tear on the engine. So I was going to reinstall the flywheel screen, a new flywheel screen that I had bought, but in order to reinstall that screen, I would have had to take the crankshaft pulley off. So I figured, well, I had the crankshaft pulley off, I might as well take it to a machine shop and have it fixed professionally so that it won't wobble anymore. Because ever since we modified that pulley to make it fit this later style internally threaded crankshaft, I was having a lot of issues with the pulley wobbling. I just couldn't get it to turn smoothly. So I figured I'd take the pulley to a machine shop, have them, you know, re-drill it, rebore it, and straighten it out for me, so I didn't have to worry about the pulley wobbling anymore. And then once I get that back, I'll put the flywheel screen on. I got all new stainless bolts for it. Then I'll put the pulley back on, and I'm going to replace the belt too, because the pump drive belt's old and cracked. I'm pretty sure this is the original one that came with the kit. You can even see it's got the older style logo on it. Luckily, I mean, most of the parts for these hydraulic lift kits aren't available from Deere anymore, but the belts are, so that's good. And they're pretty cheap, so I'll probably just get a new belt for it anyway. So I'm working on that right now. I've just been fixing a bunch of little odds and ends on it. My brake repair that I had done before the plow day didn't hold up, and I'm kind of pissed about that. I was mowing one day, and all of a sudden I started sliding down a hill, and then I looked behind me, and the brake band had completely fallen off. So I have to figure out a better way to fix that. I guess the epoxy I had used before wasn't very good. I just used some general epoxy from the hardware store, so I'm going to have to figure out something a little bit better that'll actually hold the material onto the band. So I've actually been using this thing without any brakes, which is kind of tricky to do. You just have to know when to hit the clutch and when to let off the clutch. So I'm going to have to take the left rear wheel off and get that figured out at some point, but I'll worry about that later. So there's the 210 for you. And then here's a couple new additions to the fleet here, as you can see. I haven't shown these yet. First, we'll start off with this tractor here. This is a 1968 John Deere 110 square fender that I basically got for free. It was actually kind of an interesting story. Honestly, the last thing I need is yet another project to keep me busy, but this one was too good of a deal to pass up. So my uncle has a good friend who lives in another town nearby, and he collects a lot of garden tractors and, you know, lawn and garden equipment on the side. He has a few rental properties, so occasionally he'll buy and sell a lawn and garden tractor to keep at one of his rental properties. He had a Troy-Bilt lawn tractor. It was a little Troy-Bilt pony that he bought new from Lowe's a few years ago. The thing was a piece of junk, but he bought it for one of his rental properties, and the tenant living at the rental property basically ran it into the ground. He told me that the Troy-Bilt needed a new flywheel key because it wouldn't crank over. I figured, all right, the flywheel key was probably sheared. And he said, in exchange for fixing the Troy-Bilt, I'll give you this 1968 110. And I almost couldn't believe him, because when my uncle said he had a 68 John Deere that he was looking to give me, I said, oh, it can't be a 68. And then he sent me a picture of it, and I saw the four-legged Deere logo on the front and the green engine, since the early ones had a green engine. I was like, holy crap, it is a 68. And it looked to be in pretty nice original condition from the pictures. So, long story short, I went over to the guy's house one day. I picked up the 110 and the Troy-Bilt. I worked on the Troy-Bilt for a couple weeks. That turned out to be a nightmare. It just kept causing me more and more headaches. I was finding more and more problems with it as I tore into it. Long story short, what we thought was just a flywheel key replacement ended up being a new battery, a new starter, a new coil, a valve adjustment, a new fuel system, take the carburetor apart, and a lot of other things that I was not expecting to do. So I called the guy up just to let him know what was going on, and he said, don't worry about it. I'll work on the carburetor myself. So I brought it back to him, and he let me keep the 110. So I basically, aside from the cost of the parts for the Troy-Bilt tractor, I basically got the 110 for nothing. And this is, as of right now, this is the oldest garden tractor I've owned. It's a 1968, which is the first year for the square fender tractors. And the 110 and 112, I don't think there were two model years that were the same. Every model year was slightly different. These are a little bit more unique because they were the first year of the square fenders, like I said, and they have a few telltale features that you don't see on most of the later models, namely the four-legged Deere logo on the front. 1968 was the last year that they used that logo before they switched to the later style logo. But the four-legged Deere logo on the front panel and the four-legged Deere logo on the steering wheel, those are the two of the things that set aside a 68. Some of the 69 models had the four-legged logo too, just the early ones. But this thing, come on, focus. This thing is in really, really nice original condition, as you can see. It has the original Kohler K181 8-horsepower engine in it. Runs like a top. It wasn't running when I got it. The guy used it for pulling firewood around his yard, and he mowed his lawn with it a couple times. It has a Model 39 deck, which is a 3-blade 38-inch deck, which is original to the tractor. As you can see, it's even got the correct four-legged Deere logo on it, so it is the original deck to this tractor. It also has a brass serial number tag. As you can see there, you might be able to see. Sometime late last season, the mower deck belt popped off. The PTO belt popped off, so he just parked it and used one of his other tractors. So I had to, we had to pull it out of his yard. I aired up all the tires, and I had to put a new battery in it because the battery that came with it was junk. And then once I put a new battery in it, I got it to crank over, but it wouldn't get any spark. It wasn't getting spark. So I took the points cover off and I sanded the points with some sandpaper, and I was getting spark at the points, and then all I had to do was put gas in the tank and it fired right up. It runs okay. It needs the carburetor and the governor adjusted. I figure it's probably, from having old gas in the tank. But it actually surprisingly ran really good. It doesn't smoke at all. I don't think it's ever been rebuilt, at least from what the guy told me. But this thing is in really nice original condition. It's been taken care of. I'm noticing some new parts here, like the voltage regulator looks to have been replaced. It's got a new fuel cap. It's got a new muffler. It's got a new starter, and just some other things. What's cool about these earlier garden tractors is a lot of them use sediment bowls. For some reason, this one has 2 sediment bowls on it. I don't know why, but I guess, with the crappy gasoline they sell these days, the more filtering you can get, the better. So I don't really know. I mean, it doesn't need 2 sediment bowls. I'll probably take one off, but I also crawled up underneath it, and it looks like it has new drive belts too. It's even got the original seat, which for the most part is solid and uncracked, except for one little spot right here. But this is the original seat cushion too. It's hard to find them in that condition. So it does run and drive. I took a video the night I got it running. I'll have to post that in another video. The only major issue with this thing is the transaxle needs to be rebuilt because it jumps out of every gear except for second. But you know what? That's a common problem with the Peerless 2300s. The detent springs that hold the shifter in place, they don't sit in oil. So, you know, after 50 years, the springs rust out and break. And then once the springs break, the shifter can't hold itself in gear anymore. So it just so happens that this one only stays in second gear. It'll drive in all the other gears, but I have to hold the shifter in place or else it'll jump out. So I'm going to definitely have to get the transaxle rebuilt. I'll probably just take it out and send it off to the same guy that rebuilt the transaxle on the 210. He's, you know, an experienced John Deere mechanic, so it should be easy for him. And I'll just, you know, give it a general tune-up and change all the fluids and stuff and clean it up and send it on its way. It should be worth a good chunk of change since it's a 68. I mean, it doesn't have any special features, but it is a really nice original tractor. So that's my current project. As you can see here, I actually picked up another John Deere 80 cart. I picked this up earlier this week. I had another 80 cart that I bought real cheap at a swap meet a couple years ago, but I never really, I used it. I got a lot of good use out of it, and I made some money with it, but it needed a restoration. I mean, the tailgate was missing, and one tire kept going flat, and it had a crappy paint job, and the hitch yoke was all bent up. And it just needed a good going over and a good restoration, and I didn't really want to put the time or money into it. And then a friend down the road who happens to be a collector, he's got a couple 63 110s and a lot of other rare John Deere lawn and garden tractor merchandise. He lives right around the corner from me. I bought some attachments off of him, and this 80 cart was one of the things he had sitting in his yard for sale. So I sold my old 80 cart. I just sold it real cheap to a local guy, and then I went and picked this up later in the day. It's in really nice original shape. According to the serial number, I don't know if you can see that. This has a foil tag, so it's a later cart. According to the serial number, it's a 1978. And I think the 23 means it was built the 23rd week of that year, which means it actually turns 40 years old this very week. So that's actually kind of cool. It's in really nice original shape. It's even got the tailgate, and it dumps and, you know, it latches and everything. It looks a heck of a lot better than my last 80 cart did, that's for sure. I ordered some new 5-rib tires for it because these are dry rotted. The original Goodyear tires are dry rotted and they don't hold air. So I ordered new tires and tubes, and I'm just waiting for those to come in. And then I'll put this thing to work. So that's another new addition to the fleet. I wanted a nice original 80 cart like this for some time. So now I'm looking for an easy vac system to mount up to it so I can pick up leaves and grass clippings in the fall. So that'll be the next investment. While I was at that guy's house down the road picking up the 80 cart, I also picked up a few other attachments for him. This is like my little slew of attachments here. I picked up a Brindley plow here. This is another 10-inch Brindley plow. Here's my Brindley plow, my original one. It needs a new plowshare, and I broke off a piece of the casting for the tracking bolt adjustment. So I'm going to have to find someone who can weld cast iron and weld that back together for me. But I picked up another Brindley plow. I'm actually going to sell this to my friend Jimmy, John Deere 318 guy. He was looking for a sleeve hitch plow for one of his new tractors. So that'll be going to him. And then I also picked up this little Brindley sleeve hitch disc. I just used it for the first time last night. I had to disc up a little test plot that I had plowed a few months ago. And it seems to work pretty good. It just needs, you know, a lot of weight. But I figured I could use that if we ever put in a garden again, or I could use it down in the lane to break up some of the weeds and stuff. So I figured it was cheap. So the guy gave me a deal I couldn't refuse. So I brought home the plow, the disc, the 80 cart, and he even threw in a 46-inch mower deck for like a 180, 185 series tractor. I threw that up on Craigslist and sold it within a week because I didn't have any use for it. I'll show you this project here too. I'm not really big in push mowers and, you know, like real small engine equipment. I'm mainly interested in garden tractors, but it's always nice to work on something different for a change. This is a 1978 Lawn Boy 7229 two-stroke push mower that I got off of Jimmy for free. He collects these things. He has a lot of them, and I don't know if he trash picked this one or what, but he offered it to me for free. And from what I've heard, these old lawn boys are some of the toughest push mowers ever built. They have a cast aluminum deck so they don't rust out, and they have their own basically bulletproof 2-cycle engine, which is really cool. The only thing wrong with this one is it needed a recoil. The original cable, you just pull it out and it would just hang there. So I currently have a new coil on order, the recoil assembly, the spring assembly. It sits inside that little cup there. So I have a new recoil assembly on the way. I'll throw that on there and get this thing back together and hopefully get it fired up, and I'll use it alongside our Honda push mower. I'm curious to see how it does. But it's 40 years old and it's, you know, still in good solid shape. Same with the cart, so I thought that was pretty cool. And then I have one more thing to show you guys. I posted about this on Facebook. Let's see what's sitting here behind the shed. Out of sight. Yes, my next project, you know, whenever I find time to get to it. I've actually been keeping it pretty well hidden behind the shed here for the past couple months. But I actually picked this up in late April, right before school got out. This was a deal that was about 6 months in the making. But as you can see, this is a 1972 John Deere 140H1 that I picked up for a pretty good deal. So my uncle has yet another friend who lives down the road here. He's got a lot of friends, if you can't tell. A good trucker friend of his lives down the road here, and he's looking to consolidate. He's retiring. He wanted to sell some of his equipment that he had sitting around the yard. So my uncle called me up one day and told me he had a 455 for sale for dirt cheap. And at the time, I wasn't really looking for another project, but when he told me the price, I couldn't believe it. Let me just say, it was literally dirt cheap. So I figured I would set up a time to, you know, go over and look at it and check it out and see what I was dealing with. And then I told my friend Jimmy about it, and because he's got more interest in the diesel garden tractors than I do, I figured he might know a little bit more about them, and he'd be able to look it over and tell me, you know, everything it needs and tell me if it was a good deal or not. Jimmy and I actually stopped over his house one day to check out the 455, and he told me he had another John Deere that he was looking to get rid of as well. I figured it was probably like a cheap little piece of junk or something. So he took us out to his little shed in the back, and this thing was sitting in the shed under a tarp, like in the back corner. So I lifted up the tarp, and lo and behold, it was a 140. I didn't get a really good glance at it. I couldn't really tell what condition it was in, but it was real dirty, and it did have a mower deck with it. But he was looking to let it go with the 455 for dirt cheap. So Jimmy and I we set up a package deal with him, and we got both tractors for a really good deal. We had a local plow day here back in late April, and Jimmy was down here with his trailer. So while he was down this way, we headed over to the guy's place and picked up the 455 and the 140 all in one shot, and then he dropped off the 140 at my house and took the 455 home. I don't need another project since I have the 110 to work on, but I figured I could use this one for parts. The story goes that the guy bought this tractor about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, and just used it for pulling things around the yard with it. As you can see, this thing is in really, really bad shape. I mean, it's solid. It doesn't have a whole lot of rust or anything, but it's just, you can tell it's lived a hard life. It's not the prettiest looking 140 out there. But like I said, the guy told me he used it for pushing and pulling things around the yard. He has a boat that he had to move around, a boat and a camper that he would move around the yard occasionally, so he would use the 140 to pull the stuff around the yard. And supposedly it had the engine rebuilt by the John Deere dealership about 3 years before he had bought it, so roughly 13 years ago. I don't have any proof of that, though. I haven't really, you know, torn into it and given it a good look to verify that. But this is a 72, so it is a later model. It's got the 14 horse, you know, K321. Nothing special, nothing fancy. This is a really bare bones 140. It has like no features compared to the other 140 that I have. It's sitting in the shed here. This is just a bare bones tractor. It's got no brakes, it's got no lights, it's got no nothing. So it ain't nothing too special. But he said it was running at one point. As you can see, it came with a 46-inch deck here it's actually fallen over. But it appears to be pretty solid. I haven't found any rust holes or pitting in the deck. It just needs a belt, but all the spindles are free. And the guy said it was mowing. He was mowing with it at one time. He also gave me the mule drive, which is sitting down there. I actually thought about throwing this deck on the other 140, the H3, just to see how it would handle it, but I have to get a belt for it first. But the deck's in pretty solid shape, so I guess he mowed with it for a little bit, but he mainly used this one for pulling things around the yard, and he used the 455 for doing his mowing. But yeah, as you can see, this 140 hasn't really lived the easiest life. It's got a lot of custom rigging on it. First thing you probably noticed, it's got oversized front tires on it. I think these might actually be the tires and wheels off of the 455. The 455 had oversized front wheels and tires on it too. I don't know, maybe he just had a thing for bigger tires. It's got a seat from a boat, and the bracket actually rusted and broke, so the seat's bent over. I have to fix that. It's just got a lot of other custom rigs on it. Someone wired up a push button start in place of the key. The hydro lever broke off. You can see where it was stick welded back together, and it still fell apart, so I'll have to fix that. It's got a big hole in the hood, as you can see, and a big hole in the front too. The front headlight blank is all cracked, the grill's missing, and lots of other things. You know, it's definitely been used pretty hard. It didn't have a battery in it. I'll have to throw a battery in it. He said it cranks over and has compression, but I have to double check that. I'm seeing a lot of mouse nests and stuff inside the engine, so it's probably going to need to be torn apart and cleaned up too. So I'm going to, when I get around to it, once I get the 110 fixed up and sold, I'm going to put a battery in this. I'll clean it up first. I'll put a battery in it and crank it over, see if I can get the thing running, and I'll test the hydro and everything, make sure it all works. And then what I'm planning to do is just part this one out. A lot of you guys are probably going to hate me for that, but I always say, you know, one needs to die so that others can live. And I think this tractor served its previous owners well, but its time has come. So, and you know what, there's good money to be made in parting these things out anyway. So if any of you guys need parts for a 140, hit me up. But anyway, that's an update on the fleet for this summer. I'll just to give you a rundown of what's going on this summer, and I got a lot of videos in store for you guys, and if you have any requests, let me know and I'll see if I can make those videos for you. I think I might do a video on my trailer as well, because I bought it last summer and I haven't had time to really make a good in-depth video of it. So if you guys want me to do a review on the trailer, let me know and I'd be glad to. So anyway, back to the garage. There you guys have it. Just a little update video since summer's starting. I figured I'd give you guys a quick update on some of my projects and plans for the summer. I have lots more in store for you guys as always, and hopefully I can get the X570 back soon so I can make the 250-hour update video on it. That should be a good video. And like I said, as always, I have lots more in store, so I just want to take a minute to thank all my subscribers. I really appreciate your guys' support, and I'm really proud of what my channel's become, and it wouldn't be possible without your guys' help. So thank you all. I really appreciate it. And you can look forward to more videos this summer. I have a lot planned. So thank you for watching. Please comment, rate, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.